Central Fire Station, at the corner of 9th Street and Minnesota Avenue, has been witness to over a century of history and has played a key part in keeping the city of Sioux Falls safe. It's more than just brick, mortar, quartzite, concrete, and wood. It's a working monument to brave firefighters that have called it home. The history of firefighting in Sioux Falls predates even the grand edifice of Central Fire Station. The first settlers arrived at the Falls of the Big Sioux in 1856, but did not immigrate in large numbers until the 1870s. By 1877, the community consisted of a volunteer bucket brigade, the first established fire protection for the village. In 1881, the newly formed Cascade Hook and Ladder Company purchased a hand pumper, which was pulled through the streets by 4 men and powered by up to 16 men pumping 2 rails to provide water pressure. The early 1890s found the thriving town with a 2-horse combination hose wagon, a chemical company, and several hose companies served by 128 volunteers. The turn of the century brought many changes to the new city. The disastrous fire on June 30th, 1900 at the Cataract Hotel destroyed most of the structures at 9th and Phillips and brought the demand for a paid, full-time department with better firefighting equipment. It was a wake-up call for the growing town. City Ordinance 261 established this paid fire service, which was supplemented by volunteer Minutemen available in a moment's notice. The new City Auditorium, at the site of today's City Hall, provided quarters for the fledgling department. Many of the apparatus included a state-of-the-art 1903 horse-drawn steam pumper that galloped across the city from this central fire location. With over 15,000 citizens, in 1911, the decision was made to build a new fire station. Designed by Joseph Schwartz, it was to be built at the corner of 9th and Minnesota in Sioux Falls. It was an Italianate design, and Sioux Falls Construction became the general contractor. They built the beautiful structure for a cost of just $35,962. And in 1912, firefighters, horses, and apparatus all moved in. The building featured crew quarters on the 2nd floor, accessible to the main floor by 3 brass fire poles, one of which is still in use today. Teams of horses were kept in stables where the kitchen is today, and when the alarms went off, the animals were trained to be trotted out, their harnesses dropped from the rafters, hooked up to the various pieces of fire equipment, and then driven to the scene of the fire. A hayloft on the east side of the 2nd story provided food storage for the animals on duty, as well as reserve animals that lived downstairs at Central Fire Station. S.F. Lindstrom, representing the American Sanitary Stall System, the company that constructed the horse stalls in the new fire station, had this to say when he visited the completed Sioux Falls Central Fire Station.
I can truthfully say that I've never in all my travels seen such a complete and fine fire station that is up to date in every aspect. There are many cities several times the size of Sioux Falls that would feel justly proud over such a structure. The fact is, when the building is turned over to the fire department for use, the citizens will certainly appreciate that the building is free of debt of whatsoever nature.
The acquisition in 1916 of the first motorized fire engine was the opening wedge of the movement away from horse-drawn equipment. Horses, though, didn't altogether disappear from the local firefighting scene until about 8 years later. The 750-gallon Seagray pumper was a boon to the local force and was counted on every day until the early 1950s. Other motorized pieces soon followed, and within 3 years the city had 5 trucks ready to do battle, including a chemical truck, hose truck, and an aerial ladder truck. Since the early days of firefighting, one of the main obstacles has been how to alert firefighters of a fire. The large 2,600-pound bell that now sits upon the ground in front of Central Fire Station was the first device to alert firefighters of turmoil within the city. Acquired in October 1884 and built by the Jones-Troy Bell Foundry of Troy, New York, the bell was first suspended in a tower of the First Ward House on the present site of City Hall. A year later, lightning struck the tower, splitting the corner from top to bottom. The bell was moved to the City Auditorium a few years later and rang out for 13 years before being placed 80 feet atop the new bell tower at Central Fire Station. Alerting firefighters of where they were needed was made easier when Gamewell alarm systems were purchased and scattered throughout the city. They set off an electric current when an alarm box lever was pulled. This activated various whistles atop buildings and the fire bell. The number of bell strokes would tell firefighters what neighborhood the alarm had been given from. The problem with the bell and whistles was that the whole town knew that there was a fire alarm, and curious onlookers would cause interference with the crews who were trying to get to the emergency scene. Even as the bell began its 57-year perch overlooking downtown from its ornate stone cupola, its days as an alarm were numbered. The rise in phones and residences and businesses alike made for the need of an emergency line switchboard at Central Fire Station. Calls for fire service were handled from there and dispatched either internally or to one of the other stations that were beginning to spring up throughout the city. Along with the telephone alarm system and Gamewell hookups, the local department had a direct wire from the Western Union office. These lines operated when an alarm in the industrial area was set off by someone breaking the glass and turning a key. This sent a signal by ticker tape to the Western Union office. Western Union would then relay the information to the Central Fire Station switchboard. In 1969, the decision to remove the bell from the tower was made. The frame supports had deteriorated to a dangerous point and was in jeopardy of collapsing under its own weight. The magnificent old bell that had alerted citizens since 1884 was hoisted down and sat unceremoniously in the back parking lot of Central Fire Stations for decades. It wasn't until 1981 that the Iron Giant found its current home in front of the building, a reminder of what once was. Daily life in the fire station has changed over the years, but many of the same tasks have remained the same for over 100 years. Trucks and equipment still need to be maintained. House duties such as cleaning and cooking are still performed, and the vigilant nature of waiting for the inevitable call still hangs over every firefighter on duty. Gone are the days where men had to worry about bringing hay down from the loft to feed the mighty horses used to pull the fire apparatus, replaced today with more up-to-date training, equipment, and drills. Innovations we take for granted now occurred at a regular pace at Central Fire Station. In the mid-1950s, a new phone box system was set in place to alert firefighters of the call for help. These red and blue boxes were much like the earlier versions of the pull alarms, but with telephones now inside of them. A citizen could simply open the box and speak directly to the switchboard at Central Fire Station and give specific details about the need for the fire, police, or ambulance services of the City of Sioux Falls. In 1959, the traffic light outside Central Fire Station at 9th and Minnesota was put on a switch to allow fire trucks to have a green light as they proceeded northbound on Minnesota out of the station. The switchboard operator inside Central Fire Station would simply flip a lever as the firefighters were ready to leave the station. Modern fire apparatus now have an Opticon light on top of their vehicles to change many of the traffic signals to green as they proceed through while they're on a call. 1977 was a turning point for the 65-year-old Central Fire Station. A feasibility report stated that years of wear and functional considerations had made Central obsolete. Two choices were put before the fire department: either renovate or relocate. Rehabilitation of Central Fire Station would cost $1.25 million, designed to shore up the floor to allow for heavier fire trucks to be parked in the apparatus bays, and to completely rewire the electrical system, add a shop facility, and find temporary crew quarters. The cost of building at another location would have cost $1.6 million, including preparing Central for a new use. New uses discussed for Central were to convert the building into city government office space that would include headquarters for lighter emergency vehicles like ambulances and civil defense trucks. Another option was to remove the ground floor slab and upper floor and develop a 420-seat theater. Yet another proposal for Central was to completely demolish the historic building and sell off the prime land. The decision was finally made to save Central Fire Station and renovate it and give the station a new lease on life for many years to come. May 27, 1980, found Central Fire Station receiving a great honor. On that date, it was listed in the National Historic Register. Sioux Falls Fire Rescue has the honor of Central Fire Station being one of the oldest working fire stations west of the Mississippi. In 1988, the fire chief hoped to turn part of Central Fire Station into a museum, displaying many of the antiques the department had accumulated, including the 1903 steam pumper, fire extinguishers, hose clamps, and tools. The museum was never realized, but the restoration of many of these items began, which has helped preserve them for generations to come. Sioux Falls' original 1916 Seagrave, the first motorized fire apparatus, was another item in need of repair. Saved from the scrap heap after 33 years of service rushing out of Central Fire Station, the pumper was placed in reserve to help with any large blazes in the city for the next dozen or so years. The truck eventually was retired and moved to Sherman Park in the Dennis the Menace playground. From 1959 to 1973, the old 1916 Seagrave sat alongside an F-94 jet fighter and a World War II personnel carrier. After 14 years of service at Dennis the Menace Park, the old Seagrave was returned to the fire department. The Seagrave that helped save homes and buildings in Sioux Falls is now used in parades and special occasions by Sioux Falls Fire Rescue, once again serving the citizens of Sioux Falls. More restoration of Central Fire Station began in 2011, with the complete demolition of the existing apparatus floor. Once again, the weight of today's trucks was more than the building's floor could handle. For 6 months, Central Fire Station crews operated out of other fire stations to cover the territory while the work in the building was done. In February 2012, crews were able to resume their duties, with the new floor able to withstand the pressure of even the mightiest of fire engines.
We're going to give you a little short tour of our Central Fire Station. We'll go room to room and kind of show some of the behind-the-scenes features and characteristics of this grand old building. Right now we're on the apparatus floor. When I started, it was a different floor. We broke that out and put in actually floor number 2, and now last year we busted that floor out and we've got this brand new floor in here now. So anyhow, when I started, we had a pole right here. You can see where the pole came down, and we had this one, of course, and there's actually a third one that was here originally on the south side of the end door there. That was out before I started. At the time, there was just holes in the floor upstairs, and there were just a couple of plywood covers on it, and when you'd get a call, you'd run up to the plywood covers, you'd fling them open and hit the pole hole. There was no door around it, no enclosure like there is now. It's a lot safer than it used to be. When I started also, there were some solar collector panels on the south side of the building. They never did work very good, so here about 7 or 8 years ago we took them out. Then over here is our hose tower. There's been a lot of changes in the hose tower. This is where we put our hose to hang it and dry it after each fire. It's pretty interesting. When I started, right here was just all that it was these iron rods came across and connect. This ladder wasn't here, and each one of the rods was kind of loose and it felt like it was going to fall out. Didn't have the cage. None of the catwalk up there was there. The pipes were not there. All that was up there were some heavy timber beams, and the new guy, of course, would climb up there, stand on the timber beams, straddling them, and then run the hoist to bring the hose up and down and set it back on it. That's all you stood on. No safety or ropes, no life belts or anything like that. So if you were scared of heights, we found out about it real quick right here. Up on top, what most of us new guys did when we were down here, you'd climb up there and you'd scratch your name into the mortar or into the stone up above with your initials and your year that you started. My name is up there, and I also hid a nickel up there, but I'm not going to tell you where that's at. I want that to stay there. But you would find old chew cans from the 50s that somebody would tuck away up there just to hide it and see how long it'd stay up there. And when you look in here, you can kind of see the shades of the past, so to speak. Along the side here, there's heavy timber board there. Has 1921, 1923 on it. I'm not real sure if that was to designate the year the hose was purchased or when they were testing the hose. I'm not real sure on the history on that. Now we're in the kitchen. This has undergone many changes. The original design, this was part of where they kept the horses, the stables. And when the alarm would come out, they would come and grab them and bring them out to the apparatus floor, and then they would drop the harnesses down on them. When I started, all of the stove and the fridge and everything was along this wall. The glass blocks weren't there. It was big screen doors with a big chalkboard between them. This main part of this change came about when we put that new floor in '82, and then several smaller changes over the years since then, new cabinets and countertops and stuff like that. But yeah, a lot of change going on in here. One thing hasn't changed. The newer firefighters always doing dishes. That has not changed. Okay, you can see that we have commercial grade stoves in here. The reason for that is you have multiple crews here, 9 people plus sometimes, and they're preparing meals for those crews, and it is very hectic. When they get going peeling potatoes and things like that, it is a big deal. To get out of their way, they're awfully busy. And they purchase their food every morning, and they decide what they want to have for their meals, and they eat like everybody else, noon and supper time, and if a call comes in during that time frame, everything gets shut off. If one crew goes, the other one stays, then they'll shift cooking duties to make sure somebody's minding the pots and pans and stuff. But if they both have to go, everything gets shut down and the building's secured, and they leave and they come back and they have cold food. Okay, we're now in the front office. This is where the captains do their fire reports and their daily administrative duties. It's also where the dispatch center for our entire department used to be back in the 50s and before. The calls would come in, and the dispatcher would take the call, information, location, things like that, and make sure that the crews got sent out the door in a timely fashion. There's been a lot of changes in this room also, mostly cosmetic. At one time there was only one captain down here and the battalion chief, so the BC had one end of the room as his office and the captain had the other end, but now the battalion chief has since moved upstairs to have everything up there, so this is for the 2 captains that are stationed down here. So these are the steps that go upstairs. Rumor has it they were designed this way with the multiple bends in them because horses are unable to make those turns, so they wouldn't accidentally get up the steps. So they're also one area of the station that our new guys become very familiar with. You can see there's above the wainscoting, there's the chair rail. That is an easy opportunity for the battalion chief and the captains to make sure they're doing their house duties every morning by running their fingers down them. They come away with dust on them. That means they're shirking their duties and they get a talking to. So let's go on upstairs. Okay, this is the battalion chief's office. We'll go inside and you take a look at this. They just remodeled this. When I started, this was the captain's office. The battalion chief's office was next door. We can go take a look at that too, but they just remodeled this, looking really good. It's as nice as it's ever been. All the work was done by themselves also, by the way. This is the captain's bedroom. When I started, this was the battalion chief's office on the 2nd floor. This hole was through here and a phone sat on that. This door was still operable. You'd go through there to his bunk room, and then he could use the same phone just by passing it through the hole in the wall. So he had both of these rooms back then up on the 2nd floor. Since then, with 2 crews down here instead of just one, we felt both captains should have a bunk room separate so they can study and do administrative duties up here during the evening hours. So the BC moved over to the what used to be the captain's bedroom that we just showed you. Okay, we're now in the parlor. This used to be the bunk room when I started, and all the bunks were lined up in a row. There weren't any lockers or anything like that between them. Now it's our parlor, and right through this door here is our last remaining active pole that we use to get down to the 1st floor when there's a call. But it is very interesting doing this at 3 in the morning when you're fresh up out of dead sleep and you hit this pole. You need to be prepared for it because we have had guys hit the pole and forget to grab a hold of it, and they have a lot quicker descent to the first floor than what they intended. When we come around this way, this is where their parlor chairs are. And when they get an opportunity in the evening hours, they'll come up here and try to catch a show or two and relax. Okay, this is our workout room, our PT room. Here's the lockers where they store their PT gear. These are original to the building. When I started, new guys had to share these lockers over here. You always knew that the senior guys, the guys that have been around for a long time, were always on the south half of this room where they had individual lockers. That way they didn't have to share their space with the new guys. So it took many years. There were guys that had 15 years on that still weren't over to those lockers. Obviously, firefighting is very physically demanding. The guys spend at least 1 hour a day in this room working out. They work their cardio, they work strength training, a lot of flexibility. Every year we have an iPad now that tests them to make sure that they are physically capable of doing the essential job tasks. So it's very, very intense in here. A lot of pride goes into this. Guys work out with each other, helping each other to perform better, and it's pretty impressive. We got some really, really fit firefighters on our department right now. Now we're in the bunk room. This is where the crews sleep. It's a unique situation here at this station as compared to the newer stations that we now have on the department. The crew sleeps in here together. The new stations have, each crew member has their own bedroom with their own lockers and stuff, a little more privacy for them during the evening hours. Okay, we're now in the gym, which used to be our hayloft. It's probably about 10 degrees warmer in here than it is anywhere else in the station. This is where the crews come to play volleyball and basketball and exercise. When we remodeled the second floor up here, back in the mid-'80s, the crews, we all had to sleep in here. And you can kind of tell by the way my voice echoes, it's really noisy, so you get a couple of people that snore. It was not a pleasant place to try to get to some sleep, so a lot of us younger guys would go out and actually sleep on the exercise mats out in the workout room where we were just at. But yeah, this is one of the places where it's unique to Central. No other facility that we have has a gym like this. So another reason why the newer guys and a lot of the older guys love being down here at Central, because they get to build a lot more crew camaraderie by playing team sports together. So it's a good place to be. So that's our quick tour of Central Fire Station. We're very proud of this station. We hope to have it for many, many years to come. Thank you for coming. And if you have any other questions, feel free to contact Fire Headquarters.
It's hard to narrow down exactly one experience or favorite experience. It's, you know, like I've used a reference before, it's almost like trying to pick your favorite moment with your kids out, because I mean it's been my whole career down there. There's been, you know, if it's the camaraderie, the practical jokes that don't seem to happen at the other stations quite as much, just I guess because we're, you know, 4-man crews, and down there it's 8-9 guys always together, and you know, and that's probably the biggest thing. Is just, you know, it may sound weird, but the camaraderie, the practical jokes is part of the camaraderie. It's just a different lifestyle down there compared to the other stations.
Yep, the bedroom used to be up front up here when I started, and it was a big bunk room. The only person that had separate bedrooms was the captain, because there was one captain here and one battalion chief. So they had the two separate bedrooms. Everybody else slept in the same bunk room. And I snore, so that's not a good thing to have in a bunk room. I've been rolled out on the floor a couple times at night, off my bed, and the whole mattress and everything on the floor. That's why I made captain, so I could get my own room, so I couldn't bother anybody anymore.
When I was driving out of Station 1, we like to sit out on the front approach at times and watch traffic, and I was sitting out in a chair on the front of the approach at Central with a bowl of ice cream, enjoying the evening, and my captain at the time, Raleigh Pierce, claims to have asked if I was going to sit way out there, and I said, yeah, I'm going to sit out here. And unbeknownst to me, he went in and he ordered a firefighter to pour water on me from the roof. And so I was sitting out there, and I didn't see it coming, and next thing I had a bowl of white water in my lap, and I knew I'd been had. I didn't say anything, and we went on our couple days off after that, and the firefighter that poured the water on me, after a couple days he was feeling so guilty that he called me up and apologized and said, "I'm sorry, Jim, but Raleigh ordered me to pour it on you and I just couldn't stop." But the guilt was eating him up because I didn't say anything.
The building, it's got a lot of memories in it. We did a lot of back then the firemen did any remodel or painting and everything else. Why it was done strictly by the firemen themselves. Now it's a completely different building than what it was when I started. The kitchen, the apparatus floor, the floor in here was all troweled out like bricks for when they had horses in here to where the horses wouldn't slip. And keeping the floor clean and so forth was difficult due to the roughness and everything that was on the floor. Well, the big change was in equipment. When they had just gotten rid of the last of the hard rubber-tired fire trucks when I started. And it's been a big change in the equipment that they have. When a fireman started, why he was in Central Station here for all of his training. And we didn't have a training center at that time. And any of the training was done pretty much in the lot right to the south of the station here. Really hasn't been that much of the changes in it. We had more men stationed here at that time. You didn't have as many stations that were out from here. So you'd have 18, 20 men that were stationed here in Central Station back at that time. You'd have some men that were pretty good at the cooking. The guy that cooked, he didn't have to do the dishes or clean up. So that was, and we had some good cooks. Well, the very first year when I started, they'd just gotten rid of the monkeys. Now, the monkeys from the zoo were wintered down in the basement of the station here. And the men were very glad to get rid of the monkeys because the odor was a little on the wicked side, but they got rid of the monkeys the year I started.
When Central Fire Station was first built, Sioux Falls was still in its infancy, growing, learning, trying new things. Service to the community came first in the form of a volunteer bucket brigade and evolved into a paid and highly trained fire department that exists today. The century of service of today's Sioux Falls Fire Rescue has been a rocky one at times, but through it all, brave men and women that call Central Fire Station their home have served their community bravely and admirably. Many will come after them, sleeping in the same quarters that their fellow firefighters did 100 years ago, keeping Sioux Falls safe and protected.